Wilfrid Laurier University presents A Sentimental Education, written by Hannah Mcgregor, read for you by the author. Land Acknowledgement. Wilfrid Laurier University Press is located on the Haldimand Tract, part of the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral peoples. This land is part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples and symbolizes the agreement to share, to protect our resources, and not to engage in conflict. We are grateful to the Indigenous peoples who continue to care for and remain interconnected with this land. Through the work we publish in partnership with our authors, we seek to honor our local and larger community relationships and to engage with the diversity of collective knowledge integral to responsible scholarly and cultural exchange. Epigraph. The question of living a feminist life is a very practical question. Sarah Ahmed, Secret Feminist Agenda, Episode 3.28. Author's note. I wrote this book because I wanted to try something different. It's an attempt to bring the voice I developed in my work as a podcaster back to my writing, to further push my own understanding of what forms scholarly knowledge might take. That means there are difficult topics in the following pages. Some I've tried to grapple with before, like the horrors of white supremacy and settler colonialism, and some that I'm trying to articulate for the first time. I write about my mother's death, disordered eating, and sexual violence. I try to handle these topics with care, knowing that my efforts will be imperfect. When I first began this book, I thought it was about ideas. White femininity, public intellectualism, embodied knowledges. Then I thought it was about methods, anecdotal theory, feminist friendship. Then I was certain it was about feelings, how we can feel our way through the problems of care and sentiment. It's impossible to fully disentangle these different topics, but I have arrived at last at the impossibility of arriving. If this book is about anything, it is about learning as a lifelong process, one that navigates ideas, methods, feelings, and texts to continuously move through the complexity of living in a good way. Being a feminist scholar who works in public and accessible forms, like podcasting, is an ongoing process of trying, fucking up, listening, learning, and trying again. And it's an opportunity not to erase that learning, but instead embrace it, understand it as a fundamental part of collective feminist meaning-making and world-building. This book is an extension of my commitment to collective learning as a feminist practice. In part, it is a memoir of my own education as a reader and thinker, and in part, it is an analysis of the aesthetic modes, genres, and forms that I return to time and again as sites of feminist meaning-making: the sentimental, the personal, the banal, the relatable. It's a meditation on what it means to care deeply, about justice, about revolution, about changing the world, and to know that caring is necessary and yet utterly insufficient. This work will never be perfected, and it will never be completed. Let's begin. Territory Acknowledgement. I wrote most of this book where I live, on the ancestral and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. The place currently known as Vancouver is shared between these three nations. Musqueam territory includes Vancouver as well as parts of what are now called North Vancouver, South Vancouver, Burrard Inlet, New Westminster, Burnaby, and Richmond. Squamish territory includes Gibson's Landing and the Squamish River watershed. Tsleil-Waututh territory stretches from the Fraser River to Momquam Lake, 130 kilometers north of where I am currently sitting. Note 1. These nations have inhabited, governed, and stewarded their territories for all of recorded history and beyond. They have always been here, and they will always be here. But what good is it for me to say so? While acknowledging territory as an act of protocol has become increasingly widespread in recent years, critics have pointed out how quickly this gesture becomes rote and emptied of meaning. As Vivek Shreya aptly puts it in her poem Indian, quote, "I acknowledge I stole this, but I am keeping it," end quote. I began this section on
Sample complete. Ready to continue?